All right, my guest this morning, calling from one of my favorite cities in the South. I don't like a whole lot of cities in the South, but the one he's calling out of, I do. I love Atlanta. I love Miami. That's two. There's about maybe 2 or 3 southern cities that really are the ones that I love to go to when I go into the South. And my guest is Joe N. Freeman Jr., one of the most engaging and authentic people you will ever meet on the subject of youth empowerment. Is a children's book author of The Adventures of BG, The Importance of Positive Self-Esteem. The desire to write The Adventures of BG series came out of Joe's own experiences as a young father, husband, and as a teacher. Being a dedicated and determined teacher in Atlanta public schools for over a decade left him wanting to do more for youth. It was at that point that Joe co-founded FNF Dynamics, programs that are designed to challenge, inspire, and motivate children of various ages, while strongly advocating the need to understand and advance the maturity of students through the development of age-appropriate curricula. This passion to motivate and empower youth stems from his own self-reflection of himself and the impacts he had on his students. As a teacher at a high-performing school, he often looked around at the trappings that came with the big name and wondered why he always felt like he could be doing more. After much reflection, he set off on a new path as an advocate for all youth. Joe is fully engaged in his quest to getting his message out about the power of positive self-esteem and youth empowerment at work and social settings. You can find his website at fnfdynamics.com. I'll tell you a little bit about BG. BG is a young, awkward 9-year-old African-American boy who knows little about this new town his parents have just relocated to. The story starts immediately with BG's first week of school at Lucky Harris Elementary School, where BG's hopes of making new friends quickly fade as he enters the artless yet overpopulated school. Will BG ever make friends in this new and tropical town? You'll have to find out. We'll talk a little bit about it this morning, but let's welcome to the Reading Circle microphones, Mr. Joe N. Freeman Jr. Joe, good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. How are you?
We are doing well here. Like you just heard me say when I gave the weather, the snow is just about melted. We've had multiple storms, and hopefully that was the last one we had a couple of days ago. But other than that, we're doing well.
Great. Yeah, we're at 50 degrees right now, so it's going to be a sunny day here in Atlanta.
Well, that's all right. Like I told you, like before we went on the air, my mom is about maybe 2.5, 3 hours away, depending on how quick you drive or what traffic you hit, away from you. Yeah. She's closer to the South Carolina side over there. She's about a half hour out of Augusta, Georgia, and I know that's about. Okay. I guess that's west of you.
It is east of me.
Oh, east of you. Okay, so it's east of you. So then she's about 2.5 hours east of you then. But like I said, I make my way when I go see her. I take that drive down to Atlanta and go hang out down there for a little bit.
Definitely, man. I am not from Atlanta originally. I'm from a small town in South Florida. It's actually in Palm Beach County, Belle Glade.
All right,
migrant town. But I came here for school and I ended up staying, getting a job and continuing to work, which led me to go into what I do now.
I know that's right. I have a cousin who lives down there. She's in the school system down in that area. I don't know if you all are in the same district or not, but I have a cousin that's a teacher down in the Atlanta area as well. But again, that's and she's from Virginia. She relocated down there. So that's the area. Like I said, for me, I think historically, because I am such a huge Martin Luther King Jr. fan and that whole King family fan, I think for me historically and everything in that area, I think, and plus Morehouse and all the other colleges down there, Spelman, so forth and so on, that whole area. For me, I think just connecting to the history of it. And plus, for me, the first time because the first time I went to Atlanta, I was a child. That was whenever the underground, before they developed it.
Yeah.
And now it's all developed. But the next time I went as an adult, I had never gone to an area that had so many stores that were owned and operated by African Americans. I had traveled all around the country and I had never seen the amount. And that was another thing that drew me to the city was, wow, people who look like me run stuff down here.
Yes, because in West Palm Beach, you rarely ever see that. And so it's a different feel, and that made me want a little bit more.
I know that's right. And which kind of brings me, is a very good segue into, as we get ready to introduce you in terms of, what you do and everything. And I'll tell you why, because I'm a school principal. And I know whenever we started communicating, you were telling me you were a teacher. And I can tell you now, because we were talking about African American a couple of minutes ago, man, you are rare. And when I say that, I mean in terms of being an African American male teacher.
Yeah.
Very hard to find. I'm sure you've been told that, and maybe in Atlanta it may look a little bit different, but as I travel throughout the country, I know in my area, African American male teachers are far and few in between.
Yeah. I mean, in Atlanta it's a little bit different, but me, early childhood, I'm a fourth grade teacher. This is my 15th year. I'm teacher of the year at my school. I'm the only African American male teacher at my school, out of 55, 56 teachers, over 1,000 kids. But I am teacher of the year. Luckily I was voted in by my peers. But it's a huge factor. It's a huge thing that people don't discuss and talk about. And the importance of seeing that, these young men seeing me and seeing themselves in me. It's a powerful tool that I'm able to use without even opening my mouth.
No, you're absolutely right, because my dynamics are about the same. I have one, maybe two. I'm not sure. I would almost say one as well, because the others they're still people of color. They're Hispanic or either Caribbean. But I would say my numbers are about the same in my school as well. That's what I mean. You're far and few in between. And especially once you start talking about early ed, because I know when I taught 8th grade. I taught 8th grade language arts. So I had the upper grade kids, but I mean, when you're talking a brother or African-American male teaching our smaller kids, interestingly enough, I'll say two. Because I had a gentleman that I hired last year. I had originally put him in the 7th grade. And then whenever the new school year came in, I moved him down to the 3rd grade. And what I told him was exactly what you just said. I said, first off, you're a very good math teacher. I need the kids to get the fundamentals. But secondly, I need the lower grades, the younger students, to see someone who looks like them in front of them. Mm-hmm. And so exactly what you said, and this leads into what we're talking about in terms of self-esteem, because there are so many things that feed into self-esteem or can take away from self-esteem. And one of them is exactly what we were just talking about. People don't realize it, but the fact that you walk in the room to children who look like you, and children who can see someone who looks like them who's leading the class. Now, I always be very clear when I'm having these kind of discussions, because I don't know in my listening audience what the makeup is. Let me be very clear. Because I am talking pro-black does not mean I'm anti-white. That's not the issue. That's not what we're trying to say. But we are trying to help understand that there is a connection that is made between children seeing someone who looks like them in front of them, because historically that has not always been the case. So when we get into these kind of discussions, I want to be very clear on that. No one's being anti-white, not being racist, not being prejudiced, but we are trying to help understand what having someone who looks like the child standing in front of them. And it works the other way around too, because our Caucasian brothers and sisters need to also be able to see us leading.
Yes.
So that's what I'm saying. This discussion is not anti-white, because they need to see that too as well. And so not only did you teach, but now you took it upon yourself to write a children's book. That now puts you even further out into a rare category.
Yes. Yes, it does. And I sat down, and my oldest son pushed me to write my first book. He said, Dad, you have a lot of stories. You moved around. My father was in the military. I moved around a lot. And everywhere I moved to, I had an adventure. I did something. And I struggled with this thing and not being able to reach more kids. I had 20, 25 kids, 30 kids in my class. I wasn't reaching enough. And I said, if I want to make an impact, how could I do that? Well, a book allows me to do that. I visit 4, 5, 6 schools a year, and I'm reaching over 5,000, 6,000 kids with my message of believing in yourself, the importance of positive self-esteem, the importance of not giving in, dedication, and hard work. And so that led me to these things, and so that, I love this tool. It's another tool for me to reach into my bag and pull out and use on our kids.
Now, I know And Nuri recommended, or Nuri kind of connected us. For those in the listening audience, if you remember a few weeks ago, I had Nuri Castillo on the line with me, and Nuri connected Joe and myself. And Nuri and I had the part of the discussion I'm getting ready to talk about now that I'm going to discuss with you in terms of, all right, you just said you had the book as a part of your toolkit. What is it like, again, going back to the self-esteem thing, the teacher, the African-American male, what is it like for your students to now, when you walk in that classroom with your book in hand, and I don't know if you have your picture on the back of the book or not, but certainly your name is on there. What is that like for your students to actually have a physical copy of something that their teacher has written in front of them?
Listen, it gave me chills. It gave me chills the first day a kid dressed up. You come to school as our favorite character. And a kid dressed up, a kid that never really talks in my class, and he dressed up as a character from my book. And he said, I am BG. This is who I am. And I couldn't believe it. He had my book in his hand. And just the impact of them seeing that. And I tell them the story how as a kid, I didn't even talk a lot. I didn't talk, but I would always write things down. I always had a story. And so, to give them that voice, give them that voice and to show them that you can do it and you can look like me and you can sound like me, and be able to still express yourself. That's amazing. It changed my kids. That kid now has a journal. That kid now is more likely to try new things because he knows that he's seen it. He's lived it. And so those are the type of things that I want to be able to make an impact on my kids with.
Well, there's a few things. A few years ago, the show used to be on, this is going back a long time ago now. This is going back really, this is my 18th year on the year, 17th, 18th year on the air. And in the early days of the show, it actually broadcast early on Friday mornings from 6 to 7:30 a.m. I would come to the studio, do the show, and then go to my class. And in many cases, sometimes authors would come into the studio with me, and I would ask them, what are you doing after we were done with the show? And they say, I'm going out to breakfast. I don't have anything. Or I have an appointment later on, 11, 12 o'clock, whatever. I said, do me a favor. Come with me to my school, with me to my class. I want my students to, I want to introduce you to my students. And Joe, when I tell you we would bring the book, and like I said, they would have their usually picture somewhere on the back of the book cover. And whenever I would put that author with the kids, they would lose their minds. They could not believe they were actually in the same room with the person of whose picture was on the back of that book. So I know for you now to be the children's teacher, for you to be able to stand there in front of them with that book, it has to be mind-blowing for both you and them. The other thing to me that does for them is it takes away the stereotype is the only thing you can be as a basketball player.
Exactly. It takes the excuses away. There's no excuses now. There's no excuses why you can't achieve. If I give you my story, if you see me and you know that I said, listen, I can give you guys all my highlights, all the things I was great at. I had a scholarship to college. I graduated. I owned my first home at 23. All these wonderful things. And that's what people do. But now I'm going to give you the other side, which is also the truth about me and how I was able to overcome those things. So stop comparing your life to someone's highlights. Stop it, because they're not giving you the entire truth. This is about hard work. It's not about getting it fast. This is about dedication and not giving up. And so, I express that to my kids over and over again. No matter where I go, what I'm talking to, from elementary to high school, I stress the importance of dedication, hard work, listening to your inner voice, finding out what you like to do, and then focusing on that and go full steam ahead. And I use that with my own kids in my house. And it seems to be working. My son has an academic scholarship, environmental science at Alabama A&M.
All right now.
So I'm extremely proud of him. Ecology major. Extremely proud.
I know that's right. And see, another thing, and one thing I really love about this interview for a lot of reasons. One, I do get a certain number of males on the show, but the bulk of my author guests are females. But I do get males as well. But it's, again, rare that I get one that's a teacher and an author of children's book. And I'm going to pick out another rarity for you. You focused on self-esteem. While I know it's for all kids, but your main character is a little boy. A lot of people don't associate boys or males having self-esteem issues. Most of the time when you hear self-esteem, a lot of times it's associated with females, but your character is a boy.
Yes, my character's me. He's me. BG is me at 8 years old, and having to, to juggle making new friends at a new school every time. But I had to believe in myself enough to trust myself to try and make new friends, and I didn't. I was that kid in the class that didn't speak because every time I would talk, somebody would laugh at me because I sound funny, and so you lose kids that way. And sometimes people assume, like you just said, that because I was a big kid and because I did well in school, that I didn't struggle with self-esteem. I did. I did struggle with self-image. And, so those are things that we definitely need to talk about. This is a tool. This is a tool for parents to be able to go in. My discussion questions in the back, after answering those questions, after discussing it with your kids, you should have an idea. My kid is struggling with something. Or my kid is fine. And, this is what this is about. Let's give kids an avenue and a voice. And let's
absolutely
give parents a tool
right.
to be able to ask them that.
Because again, self-esteem in general, because I don't like to talk generally or stereotypically, but in general, self-esteem is not associated with the boys, or because of how we're socialized, it's kind of like, that's a boy, he'll get over it. That's a boy. Don't worry about it. Because come on, I need you to man up. They don't put an emphasis, or they don't recognize it as much in male children as they might in females. Now, maybe that's changing. I don't know, but I work with kids every day, and I see it too in terms of boys have just as much self-esteem issues as girls. They just may handle it or manifest itself in a different way. But exactly. It's still a self-esteem issue nonetheless. So, I mean, I remember, whenever I talk self-esteem with anybody, I clearly remember when my daughters was in high school. One of my daughters was in high school, and I was at an assembly program. And this beautiful kid, I mean, she was Dominican, one of the Caribbean islands. When I tell you, Joe, gorgeous kid, teenager, this girl was gorgeous, and she was in the program. She was a singer or a dancer, actress or something, whatever the program was. And the principal came up at the end. She said, "You know what? I'm going to share a secret with you all, and I hope she doesn't mind that if I share this, so forth and so on. But I'm going to do it again, just like you're saying." She said, "Whatever the little girl name was, as beautiful as she is, you wouldn't believe she has self-esteem issues."
Yeah.
And I sat there and said, like, you've got to be kidding me. Why and how would a child that is that beautiful and that talented have self-esteem issues? But I'm saying all that to say, in many issues, the things that you think wouldn't be prevalent in someone that looks good or has talent, that you wouldn't associate self-esteem with. And in many cases, self-esteem issues are there.
Definitely. And so that's what I saw that was a need. I wanted to express my story. And so the first story talks about the importance of positive self-esteem. My second book deals with kids with terminal illness. Another thing that we don't do well is we don't communicate, or we don't allow kids to express themselves.
Ooh.
We lose loved ones, and then we, as adults, we take time and to deal with them. But kids, we continue to push them on.
Right.
You still got soccer practice. You still have basketball. You still have to do studying. Well, they are suffering too, and that looks different for kids because they see them acting out in school, or they may not be withdrawn from other people now. So I want to touch on that. I want to use another tool, another strategy that I've learned, I picked up on, and give that tool to parents, give it to social workers, give it to counselors. How do we approach our kids? How do we talk about terminal illness? How do we talk about losing grandparents?
Wow. Now, that's okay. When you first started, again, I'm sure it probably does go both ways, not having the book in front of me. But when you first said terminal illness, I thought you meant a child suffering with terminal illness. And that's like, wow, now that one is really deep. But now you're talking about children dealing with parents or grandparents or family members who have. You're right. That is, and that's another area too, and this is where I was going, because I noticed in your bio you were in a top performing school. Well, I lead one of the lowest performing schools in the state of New Jersey, and in my task over the last 5 years have been working feverishly to turn that around. But one of the hindrances are the things that you're talking about, the self-esteem issues, the home life issues. I have kids coming to me that have seen more death, sex, drugs in their 5-6 years than I've seen in my whole 55.
Yes.
And it is, I mean, and Right. We can't get to the ABCs 1, 2, 3s because of all those social, psychological, emotional issues. And that one you just brought about, yes, I have kids that have dealt with parents with HIV, parents with cancer, parents with, I mean, and that's something to do. And last night, because matter of fact, right today is the March on Washington for the young people about the whole thing with the gun violence. And last night on CNN, and I didn't get a chance to watch it, but it was a montage or a collage they had put together of all the students down there in Florida who had just gone through the shooting. And they were, as a matter of fact, I turned it off because they were beginning to express how they felt of having to go back to school after the shooting, so forth and so on. A lot of times we discount the feeling of children in our minds because they're children. Oh, you're just a child. You're just a child.
Exactly.
So when you start going around and you're sharing, because are there more than 2 books in the series, or are there more that deal with different issues?
So this is my second book that's out now. My third book, lucky enough to see the world differently, talks about autism. I taught autistic kids, and I had a kid in my class, Truman Hudson, outstanding kid, but he saw the world differently. He wasn't. A lot of times our kids, and we do this as adults, we take that shine, that joy away from kids, and so he hadn't lost it. We were talking about a science unit, and he was looking at the ceiling. And I said, "What are you looking at, Truman?" He said, "I'm looking at the galaxy right now. We had all these dots on the ceiling." And I didn't know what he was talking about initially. But what I learned from Truman is this. He has an honesty that so many of us lose.
Right.
So all these labels we put on our kids, ADHD, all these other things that kids are lucky enough to have. I had a kid that started crying in my class because he couldn't stop moving. Couldn't stop dancing, couldn't stop. He had so much energy. And I said, listen, don't you ever feel bad for that.
Right.
Because we got people that have spent millions of dollars on energy drinks.
Right.
On Red Bull, on Starbucks, to get what you have naturally. All we need to do is to channel that energy. And that's what I'm going to do for you. I'm going to get you to work 1,000 times on what you like to do.
Right.
And that's all I did. I kept him moving, kept him engaged, kept him focused. I kept him working. And he loved my class, and his parents loved it. He loved school. It's you lose a kid at 9 years old who doesn't want to go to school anymore.
Absolutely.
That he's so different. And he can't sit in his seat all day. We're missing 90% of our students because of the 10%.
You know what it is?
Not allowed to happen.
Because, see, what I heard from you, as you just described that scenario, you had the wherewithal to pick up on that and to be able to reframe it and refocus it to use it to your advantage. Sadly, and you probably know, I don't know, you may see it in some of your colleagues, and if you're fortunate, hopefully you don't. But I know what I see sometimes. There are a lot of folks who don't have that wherewithal to be able to reframe or to refocus for whatever reason. Now, I get it because in 2018, while the fundamentals and the foundational concepts are the same, the approach really does have to change to a degree. And for many of our colleagues who were teaching in the 70s and 80s, they struggle with making that shift. But the fact that you were able to pick up on, okay, you know what? That extra energy is a good thing. Now you've got to that kid's self-esteem because he wasn't put down because of that. He wasn't put down because he has the extra energy. He wasn't put down because he can't sit down. You're like, we're going to use this. But see, if we could get more teachers to do that, we'd have less kids classified. We would have higher self-esteem. We'd have a whole different viewpoint of school. Because like you said, once you get a child tuned out of school at that early age, it's a struggle.
It's a struggle from that point on. And so many kids and so many people as adults now share a story how they hated school. They hated elementary. They hated high school. We can change that. We can change. And those stories and those messages travel fast. All those stories of teachers being negative, all those stories of kids, being bullied in the halls, or kids being afraid to say their speech. Those stories travel fast. We can change that slowly. And I really believe that. I really believe that if we're investing in our kids and we just think about some of the things that we needed, that's all I do. I think about what I needed. What did I need at that age? I needed someone to listen to me. I needed someone to pay attention to me. Standards are great. The standards are going to be taught. I'm
right.
sure you get that. But how I am as a teacher, I appeal to the whole child. That's just the way I am.
Absolutely. And Joe, that is a hard sell for someone either, like you said, with a negative viewpoint or either stuck in a way that worked in the 70s or 80s. Because, when I was coming through, I'm not quite sure your age. Looks like you're younger than me on your picture. But I know when I was coming through, it was a lot different child. The child's like, there are some things as a child we didn't think about, though. We didn't think about talking back to adults. The children that I serve have no issue with talking back to adults. That's the norm for them. Telling us anything. I mean, I'm constantly having to remind them, you're not at my level. So I'm not going to allow you to think you're at my level, and I'm not coming down to yours. But at the same time, you do give them the opportunity to have some voice, and you listen to them. And like you just said, you deal with the whole child. Too many people are trying to deal with just the academics and not the rest of the kid.
Yeah.
And that's causing issues. Now, it's interesting you say that, because I had just posted on my Instagram site a couple of days ago. It said, discipline is helping a child solve a problem. Punishment is making a child suffer for having a problem.
Wow.
To raise problem solvers, focus on solutions, not retribution.
Yes.
And I have my staff. There are some folks on my staff, and I know, because they're so punitive, that all they're looking for is, I'm going to get some get back, because they're constantly running to me as the principal looking for suspension, opposed to reframing it like you just said. All right, you know what, kid? I like that energy in you. Just like you said, like, you know what? You know how many? I mean, that was perfect. But like you said, dealing with the whole child.
And it's tough to do. I mean, as an educator, it's tough to do when our classes are being filled with so many different personalities, so many different kids. It's hard to do. But once you're able to do that, then you're able to get those kids to believe in you, and you get a chance to not only get a kid to score well on the test, but you're teaching the kid a life lesson. They can now move on outside of your classroom and not expect the world to just change around them. You know, a lot of times these kids that expect the world to change around. No, it's not going to happen that way.
No, you're absolutely right. And the second post, because anytime I see a photo or any slogan education-wise, usually I grab it. But the last one that I put on there a couple of days after the discipline was 9/10 of education is encouragement.
Yes.
Now that's deep. So that's 90%. 90% of education is encouragement, because that's what you're talking about here.
Yes.
And see, my premise is, and sadly not enough people go with me, I guess statistically, but if you can do the 9/10, the encouragement thing right, you'll get all the rest of it.
Yes, it will come.
Yeah, it will.
It will come it will come. Now, maybe a struggle, but once you get the buy-in, once I get you, and I tell parents at the beginning when they come into my class, I teach fourth grade. I say, you're making a shift. Your kids are making a shift from learning how to read to reading to learn. It's a totally different shift. Right. And so, so you've gotten them watching TV, and they're watching Cartoon Network, and that's great. My job now is to expose them to some different channels. First, I get you hooked on your channel. Oh, you like animals? Oh, so we reading books about animals. Oh, that's great. And I get you excited about that genre of books. And then I expose you to something else. Before long, I got you now reading about other things. I got you in nonfiction. Then I got you over in fiction. I got you in historical fiction. So you just have a love for it. You haven't even realized that I've now shifted it. Now, so first you get them hooked. And then you expose them to all these other things.
That's exactly right. Man, I wish I could plunk you from Atlanta to Patterson. I'd put you in my school immediately, just from our conversation this morning, because that's my speak. You're talking my speak. And there's some of us that get it. And the ones that do get it, they're the ones who are relatively, if not predominantly, successful. Because once the child connects, they will, and like you said, because and we have so many ways to be able to connect that if you're still trying to lecture like we did in the 70s and the 80s, with an attention span of less than 3 seconds, that's why that kid with all that energy is moving all over the place. He's done tuned out and gone on to the next thing. You got to be able to pick up on that. I did a session the other day where I did it by grade level for my middle school. And I pulled them into the auditorium and had them listen to a podcast. We went over, and the podcast, it was of a football player from some years ago. His name was Inky Johnson. You might have heard of Inky. I don't know. But Inky, whenever he was in college, sustained an injury that took him out of the game. I think it was a life-threatening injury, and he came out of it with a paralyzed right arm. But he was no longer able to play football. But he tells his story throughout the podcast. When I tell you, Joe, that those children listened to that podcast, and I asked them some specific detailed questions just to see how well they were listening, they answered every one of them.
Yeah.
And I was trying to help the teachers understand you have resources like this.
Comprehension isn't an issue.
Right.
That's not comprehension. They all comprehending that. So you can't use that excuse. It's something else.
That's correct. Because I was like, do you understand you have these kind of resources at your disposal? You have podcasts, you have the various technologies, you have things that will connect them. And like you said, once you get them interested in one thing, you can move on to the next. We just had the introduction of the movie The Black Panther. Now, I was not a Marvel Comics kid. I wasn't in the comic books or those action figures. But after I saw that movie, it had so many different messages in there. That's, again, something you can use to hook them and then take the messages out to help them understand history, to understand family messages. I mean, Black Panther had a lot of multiple messages in there.
It did.
So I'm saying all that to say there's a lot of resources at our disposal that we can use to hook children. And if you, like you said, you use the whole child method, that you deal with whatever issues they're dealing with, you help them understand you're not the only one. Because I like the fact that you're saying BG really was you.
It's me.
So even though your initials are JF, it's BG in the book.
It's BG in the book. BG is me at 9 years old. My first book. BG is me at 11 years old in my second book, and they see that transition. My second book, I took a kid, Lameek Wilson. I found him at a high school here, Grady High School in Atlanta. He had won his art competition. I just went to see what they had to offer as a teacher. And so he won his competition, and I waited around. And I said, if I'm about empowering youth, then it's time that I start empowering youth now. So I approached the kid. I said, listen, hey, do you have a job? He just won the art competition. He said, no, I don't have a job. I'm in high school. Well, I have a job for you. Can I talk to you? Gave this kid a contract, paid him for my illustrations of my second book.
Wow.
So you have a talent. He didn't even want to go to college. He didn't want to do anything. I said, you have a talent and a skill that people will pay you for. And I'm going to show you that now by paying you to do these things. I believe in you enough. I said, this book's going to be all over the world. And it is.
Right.
The second book's all over the world. And I said, your name is on the cover, illustrated by Lameek Wilson.
So up to that point, did he even understand and realize what an illustrator, that's a career option?
I think he just liked to draw. His mind was focused on, I'm just going to draw, and I'm just going, this is my way of expressing myself.
But that's my point.
I don't know if he had ever made the connection. I don't even know if he had made, because when I approached him, of course, I'm an adult. I'm approaching a kid. He's looking like, initially I congratulated him. And I said, so what do you want to do? He was like, I don't know. I don't want to go to school. I said, well, listen, I want to offer you a job.
But see, that's my point in asking the question in terms of there are so many career options out there. When you go to that occupational guy, whatever it's called, I mean, it is extremely thick. I mean, there are occupations and careers that we've never dreamed or heard of. And our kids are the same way. And now you walk up on a young man who's talented in the arts and you say, how would you like to be an illustrator? I mean, the fact that he may not even know what that was, but now you're saying, I'm going to pay you to draw pictures for my book. That's called an illustrator. See, that's education right there in itself.
Right there.
And you never know. He may wind up becoming, he is already an illustrator. The fact that you paid him, he's already one. But he may wind up pursuing that as his overall career choice. Yes.
Yes, I talk to him. I still check in on him. He's going to illustrate. He's illustrating my third book right now. This kid, I'm going with him. So no matter where I go, my ultimate goal is to get a cartoon for my book series. And so that's what I'm shopping around. And when I go and when that happens, he will be one of the people on my team. He will know. You know, I've already explained it to him because he has a gift and it needs to be enhanced and he needs to be able to work in his craft. So, you know, that's my whole point. That's the whole thing with FNF Dynamics.
So he's actually, I'm glad you went in there because I was going to ask you about that next. So he's actually building a portfolio. So exactly. he can now go to another company with that and say, this is the work I've already done.
Yes.
Man, that's outstanding.
That's what he's doing.
That is outstanding. And more of that is needed. Do you ever get into a situation, and I don't know if you have or not, where your colleagues might come to you and say, well, how come he'll do that for you, but he won't do it for me?
Oh, it just happened. This just happened yesterday. And this kid is not even African American. He's not an African American kid, but he is a boy. And it was a simple technique of me looking and recognizing that he has a problem with women because he doesn't. Women are always talking to him, always talking at him, and they, you know, so I always giving him orders, and I knew that right away, and so I approached him a little differently. And they said, "Well, what are you doing, Freeman? And Mr. Freeman, what are you doing? How are you getting these kids to move?" I said, "First of all, I talk to them. I don't talk at them."
Right.
So
there's a
I'm
difference.
Not just barking orders. Yeah, I'm not just barking orders at them and screaming, "Hey, I need you to do this." No. What do you think the problem is? And so, and that's the first thing. Why do you think this person is upset? A lot of times the kids have no idea. They've missed the cues. They've missed the social cues that the teacher's even complaining about. They don't even know. And so the first time you explain to them, like, listen, this is what the problem, this is why this person is upset. Can you see their point now? Yes.
Right.
Moving forward, what can we do now? This has happened. What can we do now moving forward? Very simple. I can apologize. I can do these things. Let's go. Let's move in the direction of being a problem solver. So I get it often. But you can't. I recognize my gift. I was going to get out of the field of education. I was going to go into sales.
Right.
Or I was going to get into sales, but that wasn't my passion. My passion is motivating kids. My passion is connecting with people. And so I'm still in it, and I'm in it to make sure I make an impact.
Well, man, I applaud you. Like I said, we need more of us because a lot of times, first off, again, as I said at the top of the show, it's relatively difficult to get males in education, period. Let alone African-American males teaching, right, and keep them because a lot of times a male can go, like you said, I can go into sales, I can go do this, that, and the other, and they do.
Because the money is a lot more. Yeah.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Yeah. But at the same time, the one thing that I love about education is the fact that you really do, not that you can't do it in other industries, but in education, you do get a chance to leave a legacy that when you're long gone, people are still going to remember Mr. Freeman. I had because at this point, I can tell you, Joe, all of my elementary school teachers and most of my high school teachers and some of my college professors, because I can run right up the line. First grade, Miss D. Maria. Second grade, Miss Royster. Third grade, Mr. Booth and Mr. Zurich. Fourth grade, Miss Harrison. Fifth grade, Miss Campbell. Sixth grade, Mr. Cartania. Seventh grade, Mr. Wright. Eighth grade, Miss Murphy, Pullett, Schulman. I mean, and some of those are gone. Some of them have passed away, but I can still call their name out. And people are going to be doing the same thing for us.
Yes.
In terms of, and the fact that the authors also have the opportunity. So you're getting like a double whammy here. Authors, maybe even a triple one because you have the foundation. Authors have the opportunity to leave a legacy as well because it might be 50, 60, 70 years down the line and your books might be in somebody's basement or attic or a trunk somewhere that a child pulls out. And we may be dead and gone, but now somebody is still reading about BG.
Yes, that's the impact that reached me. When my kids were able to pull this out, my books are registered with the Library of Congress. When they're able to go and then they're able to see that, hey, you know, my dad he's done these things. That's when it changes things. When I have a son 5 years old, and he had to dress up as what he wanted to be when he grew up. He said he wanted to be an author. He wanted to be me. Oh man. And I had already gone to work, so my wife just sent me the photos, and I was like, what? My son wanted to be me. He dressed up as me. My son has on a blazer, and he's at the time he was 4.
Right.
And he's 4 years old. Oh man, I'm my oldest. He likes to talk about pollution. It's like, there's a title for that. I know what that is. That's environmental science. I know what that is. That's ecology.
Right.
You write papers to focus on this, and you'll get their interest. There it is. That's what you want to get into forestry.
Right.
There's a title for that.
Right.
I don't worry. And so a lot of times we don't know the terminology. We have access, but we don't know.
But see, that's where I was going a couple of minutes ago with Illustrator. Man, you opened up a whole new world for that young man, that he's not just drawing, that he's actually doing something that's a profession that he can make really good money with once he gets known, once he gets out there.
Yes. Great money.
So
that's what it is. Yes. And to bring all of that back together with my FNF Dynamics,
right.
A guy approached me, my business partner, Milcar Featherstone. So you got Featherstone, you got Freeman. You got Milcar Featherstone is 6'6", brother with long dreadlocks. I'm 6 feet tall with no hair at all. And we in a school where we're the only black males, besides the janitor, besides,
right.
Besides those guys, which I love those guys to death, Mr. Clark and all of them. But this is the only interchange in a leadership role that we'll have with kids like this. With kids, I teach on North Atlanta. I teach in Buckhead, that area. So these are the only times these kids are having interchange with us, because they're probably leaving my school to go to private school.
Right.
And we are teaching them about math and science, and we're teaching them about film and media. And it was a simple thing. I was doing experiments for free after school with kids because I like science. And I said, all you parents have to do is send in the materials. We'll do it. You want to do it, we'll research it, we'll do it. He approached me. He said, listen, Freeman, I'm doing the same thing at our primary center, our primary campus. Let's get it together. So we said, okay. We were trying to come up with a design. I said, no, I have a competition in my class. I had a competition in my class. Kid designed our logo. We digitized it, patented it. He got the first T-shirt. We framed it. He's on our website. He will be there forever. And for as long as we are in business, he will be on our website.
Wow.
He will get a new shirt or hoodie every year with the new design because he started that. And so that's about empowering. For him to see that, we presented it in the front of the class. It was in a frame. He has it on his wall in his room. These are the things. This kid now is in the 8th, 9th grade, probably is in high school now. He uses that to push him through. He recently lost his father to a freak accident in Florida. But I check on him. This kid is a part of me. He's a part of something. He's a part of a bigger thing. And that's what we wanted to do, and so just have two brothers talking about math and science all day. We doing experiments,
right?
We creating all these things. Oh man, you should see a parent approach me and say, well, who writes the units? Who should I talk to about the business? Who owns the business? Who's the owner? I said, well, you're looking at one of the owners right now. They couldn't believe it.
I know. That's why I'm laughing.
Believe that. They couldn't believe it because they've been told and
right.
taught and they've seen in the media so many times
right.
that this doesn't exist. It does. There's so many other great fathers, so many other black men, and so many other men that love science. And believe it or not, my science class is filled with girls. I got 2 girls in it now. My class is filled. I got 20 kids in there.
All right.
70% of my kids are girls. Of girls that are pushing engineering, pushing science. And these girls are kicking butt. So we change just by me being who I am, being a black
right.
male. I'm breaking down barriers for girls now to want to come in and do these things. So you just never know.
You don't. And see, the thing that I'm really loving about this conversation is that education really can be fun. The kids do not have to be bored of education. And I know it's a play on words, but they don't have to be bored of education. They don't have to be bored with education. They really don't. Education doesn't have to be boring. It can be fun and it can be engaging. If you plan it out and you think it out and you're perceptive in terms of dealing with each child, as you said, as the whole child. So I'm loving what I'm hearing there, and I laugh because I had an experience like that with a contractor one time. It was an African-American contractor who owned the company, who was doing some great work. And a Caucasian brother walked up and did ask the same question. Who's the owner of this? You all are really doing some great work. And when the brother said, I'm the owner of it, I mean, the Caucasian man was in shock, like, what? Yes. Yes, he's the owner and he's doing great work. Yes, you can contract him out, but the expectation is not there. And I've had the same thing. I remember the first school that whenever I got promoted as an administrator, I moved from teacher to vice principal. And the school that I was sent to had not had any African-American administrators. I was the first African-American administrator they had. And one day, one of the parents, who was African-American, mind you, came up and she said, she smiles and she said, I have to apologize to you. And I said, why? I didn't even know her. We hadn't interacted or anything. I said, why? She said, I see you out here on the playground every morning and I didn't realize you were the vice principal. I thought you were the big black security guard.
Yeah.
And so those stereotypes and perceptions, they are there. So I know the fact whenever you and the other brother walk in talking about this is our company, we wrote the curricula, so forth and so on. I know you get kind of like that double take.
Yes. Like, what? Really? Oh, okay. So, yeah.
That's a beautiful thing.
But it is a beautiful thing. It is. And it is also been eye-opening, too, because a lot of times, I'm jumping around, but to go back as an educator, as an author, and as a business owner who lives right downtown Atlanta, sometimes we don't use those resources. In other communities, they pick up on that. You know,
right.
If I'm going to a synagogue, Jewish community, they love that. They want me to come out. They want me to do experiments. They want me to talk about how importance of writing. Sometimes in our community, we don't celebrate that enough.
Right.
We don't pull those people in, and that's the part that I struggle with. That's the part that is, sometimes it's frustrating to me because you'll see people. We offer scholarships to anyone that wants to do science and engineering,
right,
and can't afford our programs. And sometimes we let our pride get the best of us, or sometimes we just assume as people that we don't take ourselves serious enough. Okay, well they must be playing around. When they're playing around, they're making slime. That anybody can do that. No, we're talking about molecules. We're using all those terms that you see on a standardized test. So I don't want you just to assume that we're just calling it these things. It's just pudding or slime or pudding. No, it's not. So, I'm just trying to do my part to reach as many kids as possible, man. And I appreciate you giving me this platform to be able to talk to the world and let them know that, hey, in all these pockets, people are doing amazing things.
Yes.
You just got to bring those resources together.
Yes. As a matter of fact, that's my next question for you. In terms of when you decided to put pen to paper to tell your story in book format, where did you begin?
I started with an outline. I said, what do I want to teach people from this? What do I want people and kids to learn from my stories? And so I started with an outline of how I felt as a kid going and entering a building with no artwork, entering a school that's overpopulated, overcrowded. And how did it feel? Because I had been to different schools, so I can walk into a school now and get a feel for the school. And a lot of times, educators are barking at kids and screaming
Absolutely.
at them. And it's not an environment that's conducive to learning. It's not an environment that the kids want to come to every day. So I said, let me put that in words. Let me put how that feels in a kid-friendly language. These are grown-up adult topics in kid-friendly language. And so I started with writing an outline. I started 4 or 5 in the morning, probably like 4 in the morning. While the house was quiet, my oldest son would see me at the table writing. And so he'll have memories of me writing at that table. Old school with my notebook.
Right.
And transferring it over. So that's where I started. That's where I started now. That's been way to a scholarship. I give at my old high school, I do a Adventures of BG scholarship, $1,000.
All right.
GPA 2.5 to 3.0. And like I tell the kids, anybody can give money and walk away. But we're investing in you. So it's about, I got 5 guys. One is a barber. He owns his own barbershop. Another guy is a former NFL player. The other guy that does the scholarship with me he's a character in the book, Manuel Castillo, my best friend, my daughter's godfather. He's a detective. I grew up with him. And, you have me, and you have another guy who's a motivational speaker. There's a panel of men that you get our phone numbers, and you can call us 24 hours a day.
Wow.
And so this kid that went to college, his full scholarship, Bethune-Cookman, we got him a suit, We got him dress shoes, and we gave him $1,000, and we gave him access to us. You can use us. Call us. Your father doesn't understand. Your mother doesn't understand. Call one of us. Out of the 5 of us, I'm pretty sure one of us has gone through it before. And so this kid, man, he's sending us pictures. He's doing well. I called him. I talked to him. He has a suit on. He's sending me pictures with the suit. And I just thought about what did I need? So some started as a book, and now led into a scholarship, has led into some other things. So I'm completely blessed and honored to be able to do this for people that look like me. And
I know that's right.
You don't have to be rich.
You don't
have to be rich. You don't have to be rich to give back.
And see, the thing, again, everything you're doing, the foundation, the book, everything in my mind, because kind of like everything that I do is in that same vein. It all strings together or ties together for education. Yeah. Everything is, at the hub of it, if you wanted to do like a mind map and you drew a circle and put the word education in the middle, you can now spin off of that your foundation, you can spin off your teaching, you can spin off your book, you can spin off the scholarship. Yes. All of it spins off of that. And everything I do is in a similar fashion, very much the same way. But the thing about this and what I was saying earlier about leaving the legacy, you're actually changing lives. You're touching lives and you're changing lives and you're making life better for somebody else, not just yourself. And because of that is why you're being blessed and why you're being successful, so forth and so on, because you're not worrying about just Joe and Freeman Jr. You're changing lives for somebody else.
Definitely.
And see, and with that, all I can tell you is continue doing what you're doing because you're having an impact on others. Like that young man is the illustrator will always be able to say, you see that book? That's mine. You see that book? I did that drawing. I did that. The young man that you just talked about going off to college with a $1,000 scholarship in the suit. You know what? Had it not been for these brothers, these men, I might not be. Because that's what I tell my teachers all the time. Because like I said, our school, we are an urban of urban. And when I tell you we have some challenges, we have some challenges. I'll be the first to admit that. But at the same time, I'm constantly sharing my staff. I said, look, one day, your most cantankerous child is going to come back to you and say, Miss such and such, Mr. such and such, I remember that day that you said this to me. And had you not said that, I would not be here now. I'm telling you, it's going to happen 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the line. They're going to come back across you and say, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be doing X. And I know that's what's going to happen with you just based on the conversation we had over the last hour. Folks are going to come back and say, Mr. Freeman, if it wasn't for what you did, I wouldn't be wherever. And the ultimate goal is to empower you. That's all I want these kids to feel motivated, empowered, listened to. I want them to feel like they can go out and be the best them every day. I can be the best of me every day. And so as a kid, you can start over. Yesterday was a horrible day for me. As an adult, we can too. Right.
Today I can make it the best day ever. Today I can. So, again, that's what I need is a suit. I can tell you a story of me going on the first internship interview at the zoo because I wanted to major in zoology. And I got off the bus. You're going to laugh at this. I got off the bus in my prom suit. It was an off-white suit. Right away, it was an eyesore. Right away, I stood out from all the other interns, and I realized it before I even entered the gate of the zoo. But that was a lesson for me. So this is what sometimes you don't know. And I'll make sure that these kids will have that. He will have a suit that you can go and interview. I'm not talking, so I'm not talking about just a suit for dates, a super skinny suit. No, you have a suit that you can go out, power tie, and you're ready to conquer the world. So, that's what it's about.
No, it really is. And again, I am thrilled, as they can say, as some of our senior saints can say, happy glad. Happy glad. Just the fact that there's another brother in the struggle, because again, we are maligned in the media in terms of the perception, the stereotypes is because every black man is not a thug. Every African American is not, 50,000 baby daddies. I mean, it's just not that. And so whenever I do come across those and we have these conversations that I know are trying to lead other children, regardless of their color, to a higher level. Because the same things we were talking about, I don't care whether you're Spanish, whether you're African American, whether you're Caucasian, whether you're Asian, the same principles apply.
Yeah.
And if you take heed and listen, and our children, like you said, they really just want somebody to listen to them. And it's interesting. You were talking about when you walk into a building, if you hear, because again, I just shared with you, my kids, we were in the urban of urban. That's what they hear at home. They're constantly being told they're nothing. You ain't no good like your daddy. You a little S-head. You a little this, that. So now they come to the school and they get now somebody else yet fussing at them. And you wonder why they tune out.
Yes. You fall in line. It's just like everything else that I hear. And so it's not different. It's not an outlet. And what that does, too, is teaches a lot of that is fear.
Right.
I taught 5 years at schools, at inner city school. It was here in Atlanta. Now it's Barack and Obama Academy. I mean, Barack and Michelle Academy. Academy now. But before it was a different name. You know, they changed our name.
Right.
When the neighborhood changes, the name changes. You know.
Correct.
But that's it's a completely different thing. But that school, I didn't understand the difference between my school and that school. I said, these kids are walking in the halls. There's nobody barking at them. They don't have to walk in a straight line. I don't understand this. And I sat back and I reflected on it. I said, you know what it is? Out of fear. In my old school, they were teaching fear.
Right.
If you don't do these things, it's going to lead to this. At this school, there's no fear. If you ask a kid, any kid, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? Well, I'm doing this because of this. There's no fear. So there's good things in that. But as adults, sometimes in those rough schools, we are afraid that some of these other things are going to happen. So we scream at them. If I don't do it, who else is going to do it? If
Good
I don't
point.
tell them, And so that is the fear. We're teaching them to wait for somebody to tell them what to do.
Right.
Or get used to somebody. That's a huge difference. Being a leader or someone waiting to be told. Being a follower. That we have to change. We got to realize that it's not working. We're losing more kids.
No, you're absolutely right.
More kids with that.
I mean, to your point, if you get the kids to the point where they understand they're responsible and trustworthy, there's a lot of these things that we have as restrictions that wouldn't have to be restrictions. Like to me, cell phones and all that. If you use that responsible, I wouldn't have a problem with you using cell phones. Yes. And because we're not teaching you, because we're constantly restricting you, it's always this battle. It's always like this combat. That's not supposed to be here. Turn that off. It's supposed to be in your locker. It's supposed to be in your pockets. And the more we do that, the more the kid wants to use it.
Exactly. Exactly. The more they want to be defiant.
Right.
It's a power struggle. I don't want to get in the power struggle with you.
Right.
It's not about that. I don't have time for that.
That's absolutely right. And that's where, and so when I, as the principal, I come through somewhere every now and again, I leave him alone. And they, you don't do nothing. Mr. Medley don't do nothing. He no, you don't, you're missing the point. If you were not to resist that and struggle with that, eventually the kid will put it away. I've actually had more kids put away their cell phones because I didn't say anything to them than I did for saying, put that away.
Exactly. So, some people can see it.
Right.
And you got to be able to see the bigger picture.
Right.
You got to be able to see the connection. Let's make these connections.
Right.
This is bigger than a cell phone.
Right.
This kid is always being jumped on. Somebody's always screaming and yelling at this kid. Somebody's always telling this kid what to do.
Right.
So they're trying to now I'm going to exercise my right to do this, and they'll stop right now in the middle of your class. They'll say, you know what, I'm not taking it anymore. This is a build-up. They'll say it right there. This is a build-up of so many things. I'm not doing it today. I'm not doing it.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, you want to this kid is so defiant. He's never done this. You're missing it.
That's absolutely right. Well, I tell you what, it's 8:00. I need to flip over. Let me flip over. And then when I come back, you have the opportunity to promote any way you want in terms of your websites, the organization, your book, how they can get in touch with you, speaking engagements, this, that, and the other. You can say anything with the exception of a dollar amount. So let me do the weather and all that good stuff. When we come back, the mic is yours to promote.
Thank you.
WPSC, Wayne, New Jersey. On the radio, 88.7 FM. Online, gobrave.org. A tune-in radio station. Part of the William Patterson Broadcast Network.
Broadcasting live from Hobart Hall in Wayne, New Jersey.
This is
The Innovative.
I think they're really unique.
The Fearless.
They have awesome variety.
The Kick-Ass.
I love Brave New Radio.
The Sensational.
I've never heard anything like it.
This is the one and only Brave New Radio.
Here's your North Jersey weather report.
All right, we have moved up to 34 degrees on our way up to 46. Mostly sunny today, 26 as a low this evening. And then on tomorrow, Sunday, 44 as a high, cloudy with 28 as a low tomorrow evening. Then on Monday, 47 as a high, sunny again, 28 as a high. Tuesday, 50 as a high, 33 degrees as a low, partly cloudy. And then rounding out the forecast on Wednesday, expect some morning showers, 47 degrees as a high and 40 degrees as a low. I truly hope you've been with me since 6 this morning, but if you haven't been with me since 6, certainly since 7, as my guest has been on the line, and we've been having educator talk. For those of you, if you're not an educator, I'm telling you, now, Joe, this is what I do know, because we're constantly saying you can't make this stuff up. And when I talk to folks who are not in education, and we kind of go through some of the scenarios that we have with our children, they look at us mouth dropped, like, are you kidding? Really? Yes, it's real. I say, yeah. I would be able to really go on the circuit as an educator comedian, and I'd have some fun. I really would. Folks would be rolling in the audience with some of the scenarios. They really would. I changed the name to protect the guilty, but in terms of some funny scenarios. So if you've just joined us, we've really been talking some educator talk. On the serious side, though, some of the things that Joe and I have been talking about, if you were to put them in place, I guarantee you would get a different student, a different person, a different child, and you would get different results. But because too many really, as we were just talking about before the break, implore the yelling, do as I say, do this, do that, don't do this, don't do that. Because we're so locked into that power struggle that Joe was just talking about, a lot of times that's why we get what we get. Yeah. And his book, the series rather, The Adventures of BG, or the BG series, deals with self-esteem, is dealing with kids who are dealing with trauma for the most part. When you start talking terminal illnesses, that's a trauma. So he's addressing those issues. And that's what we've been talking about for the last hour. So that's why I say I truly hope you've been with us. If you haven't been with me since 6, certainly at 7. And because we're coming down to a close of this, but I have enjoyed talking to this. I've been energized and empowered just having the conversation. And at this point, I give my guests the opportunity to promote. They have the opportunity to shout out anybody they want to shout out. They can do their websites, any advertising. The only thing that you are prohibited from saying is a dollar amount, because folks can work that out when they get in touch with you. But other than that, I'm going to turn the mic off, and it's yours.
Listen, I really appreciate it, and thank you for the opportunity. Anyone that's listening, I'm just an educator that loves empowering you. You can reach me at theadventuresofbg.com. You can find my both of my books at my website. You can even read about my business, FNF Dynamics.com. That's my other website. I'm on all the social media outlets. Adventures of BG on Instagram. I'm under Joe Freeman on Facebook. I'm Joe Freeman on Twitter. Please reach out to me. Look and see what my books are about, because we're about reaching our kids, impacting them early, and changing lives. I want to send a shout out to my family in Florida, even my family in New Jersey, my frat brother, my LB, Samuel Gardner. I think he's at the WSB station up there. I definitely want to send a huge shout out to all the people in Atlanta, all those people that support me, all my foreigners. There's a lot of foreigners. My book has a lot of different characters on there. And I got a lot of my best friends, is Hispanic, another friend, a Jamaican. And so I want to send a shout out to all those people that started supporting me from the beginning. And so I'll just say my shout out to you in your language. Salam, Babuni, Dumnaduk, Salam Demanir, all those people, you know who you are. And I just want to say hi and thank you, and I really appreciate that. Thank you for the opportunity.
Man, I thank you for so I know so rising early for you is not an issue, because I heard you saying you wrote at 4:00 in the morning. So
Yes,
I thank
I'm
you
always up.
for right. So for doing a 7 o'clock is not an issue, and we know as teachers we know we got to be in at a certain time. So, but I thank you, and I thank you for all that you do. I just heard you mention frat. Which one?
So I'm a Sigma.
All right now.
Yes, Phi Beta Sigma.
I know some Sigmas as well. Now I'm an Alpha, but I know some Sigmas. And I tell you, I told you earlier that I was like a huge Martin Luther King fan. The reason I pledged Alpha was because I found out Martin was an Alpha. I happened to be reading. I happened to be reading one day, and I saw that his fraternity was Alpha Phi fraternity, and that's when I said, "That's where I'm pledging that." Because when I said, "If it's good enough for Martin, it's good enough for me." And, but the Divine Nine. Because that's a whole nother topic of discussion as well in terms of African American fraternities and sororities where we continue on after graduation, after college. And a lot of people get confused with that. I've had a lot of my Caucasian brothers like, fraternity, you all not realizing that we do a lot of community service once we're out. A lot of fraternities, they don't do that. Well, once you graduate college, that's it. You're done. But with the Divine Nine and a lot of the African American fraternities and sororities, we continue doing exactly what you've been talking about in terms of making life better for others, the community. So, all right, now I'm glad to hear you're in the Greek family.
Yes. I want to give a shout out to Xi Chi Sigma. That's my graduate chapter here in Atlanta. We just fed the homeless at Georgia State.
See, there you go. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Exactly what I'm talking about. So, man, again, hats off to you. Had a wonderful time. This is recorded. Right now, I'm a little behind. I got to do last week's episode and this week's episode in terms of getting it up on my YouTube channel. But once I do that, I send you the link to the YouTube channel as well as an MP3 link that you can do whatever you want with. It's yours. Once you get it, you can share it out, send it out on all your social media sites. And what do you say on Instagram? You were The Adventures of BG?
I mean, Adventures of BG.
On Instagram. All right, so I'm getting ready to follow you in a couple of minutes. I'm getting ready to go to my Instagram site and look you up.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. I'll do the same.
All right. I'm on Reading Circle. So if you see Reading Circle 01, that's me.
Okay.
And,
I'll write down it. Okay.
All right. Well, I tell you, man, have a wonderfully blessed day and a wonderfully blessed week and a wonderfully blessed life for that matter. But, man, keep on doing what you do. As my mother can say, keep on keeping on.
Yes, sir, and I look forward to speaking to you, in the near future.
Well, I tell you what, you know what? If you ever, if you come to the New Jersey area, I mean, feel free to give me a buzz or whatever. Like I said, Cherry Hill is only about 2.5 hours away, maybe 3 tops, but I don't even think it's that long. Cherry Hill might be 2 hours because I used to be in the military in the Air National Guard, and the base was down there, Exit 7, on the Turnpike. And if I remember, Cherry Hill is something like 4. I think Cherry Hill is like exit 4. It wasn't that far because I know some nights we got put up in Cherry Hill on our weekend duties. We stayed in a hotel or whatever in Cherry Hill, and it wasn't that far from where that was. And that was about an hour and a half, 2 hours. So my point is you're not that far. So if you're heading up that way, shoot me an email or something, let me know. And hey, maybe you can walk in my building and get a chance to see what it's like.
Thank you. I really appreciate that opportunity. I thank you for that invitation too. I definitely will use it.
All right. And then if I get down to Louisville to see my mom or whatever, I'll do the same with you.
Definitely. Please do.
All right. Again, man, enjoyed it. Loved it. Keep doing what you're doing because you're impacting lives.
Thank you. And have a great day.